the Warriors and win the whole damn thing. And I don't think any of us would have been surprised if they did. But I think they're going to learn from this defeat and come back stronger. I think Giannis is going to learn from this. I think Bud's going to learn from this because he had that Eastern Conference Finals loss when he was with the Hawks,
Yeah.
when Kenny Atkinson was on his staff. So Budenholzer's had two conference finals losses now. Giannis, this is the farthest he's ever gone, but he's so young. He will be back, and you never know what could happen. I mean, the Raptors could win the title, and Kawhi Leonard could still leave. I know it'd be really hard for him to do that, but we're looking at a possibility of a brand new top of the Eastern Conference next year. And I think before we move on to our big NBA Finals preview, the Bucks have a lot of free agents. They locked up Bledsoe, but Middleton's going to be on the open market. Mirotic, Lopez. I mean, if you're the Bucks, do you run it back? Or do you try and find another younger superstar to pair alongside Giannis?
So I think the word out of Milwaukee is that they're going to prioritize keeping Middleton and Lopez. There's two guys there, Jason, who obviously aren't mentioned when you go into that then. Those are Malcolm Brogdon and Mirotic. The fact that Mirotic did not play a single minute in Game 6, Jason, leads me to believe he's gone. I do not think Mirotic is coming back to Milwaukee. They gave up 4 second-round picks for him. Ultimately, they didn't have to give up a first-rounder. I think they're going to let him walk. I would be surprised if he ended up back. Brogdon is going to be a more interesting case. And the reason is we don't know what his market is yet, Jason. I have been screaming for the Bulls to try and get him this offseason since, I don't know, since last year. And I really hope that they make an offer because I am not sure the Bucks are going to be willing to pay $15 to $20 million a year for him. After committing, I think it's $52 million for Bledsoe, they might have to pay even more to keep Brogdon. And I
Well,
wonder if
Brogdon's
they'd be
only in
willing
his
to do that.
second year, though, right? Or was this his third?
He's heading into restricted free agency. He's been playing for about 3 years, I believe now, and I think this was his third season. So he'll be a restricted free agent. I think he's going to command somewhere in the range of $15 to $20 million with the way that he played this year. He's a phenomenal defender. I thought one of the sort of catalysts for this whole struggle that the Bucks faced was that they didn't really give him enough on his plate. I thought he was their best secondary playmaker after Giannis in the series. I thought he was much more decisive. He's a really good shooter, so that stops some of the defensive schemes that teams can run at you when you are that. And I think there's a really good chance, Jason, that they try to bring back the band, but Brogdon might not be there because I don't know if they can afford to pay him knowing how much they're going to be paying Giannis. Because the other thing, Jason, before we kind of move on, Giannis, his placement on the All-NBA team makes him eligible for the Supermax extension. And that is an awful lot of money, my friend, that the Bucks are going to be offering him. And that's going to make them have to tighten their purse strings a little bit to keep all these guys.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see another case where it's a small market team with an all-world player. But I think this will turn out the opposite of what's going on in New Orleans with Anthony Davis. Giannis seems like a loyal dude. He's very humble, and he's endeared to the city of Milwaukee, to the fans there, and he wants to bring them the Larry O'Brien trophy. So I think Giannis will be a Buck for a very long time, and I think this team will be a force to be reckoned with in the East for a very long time. So just like last week with the Portland Trailblazers, hats off to the Bucks on an incredible season. But Toronto was the better team. Kawhi was otherworldly, and he got help when he needed it the most. I mean, Siakam, Lowry, Green, Van Vliet, Gasol, Ibaka. Every guy who was important to this rotation had some sort of a key contribution, and the Raptors are in the finals because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think, Jason, it's time to kind of start looking at these finals.
Wait, are you sure Drake? Are you sure Drake wants us to move on? I think he called me before the show and said spend at least an hour on the Bucks series so I can continue laughing at Giannis.
I mean, that was something else, and I'm interested to see what happens with Drake as the finals go on. I'm not sure the people of Milwaukee were very happy with him, but ultimately, it is time to move on to these finals where the Warriors are going to play the Raptors, who, by many advanced metrics, Jason, are actually the best team that the Warriors have faced in the KD era. So that is a very interesting subplot here, is that a lot of the advanced metrics really, really like this Raptors team. And when you combine that with the fact that Kevin Durant is confirmed to miss game one, and we don't know what to get from DeMarcus Cousins, things start getting interesting here, don't they?
They do. And it came out, I think, a little while before we started recording that Durant was on the team charter. So he will be in Toronto because he did not go up to Portland for games 3 and 4 when they clinched. He was stayed back home in the Bay Area. So it's a good sign. They got media day Wednesday and then game one, obviously, Thursday night. So we're here to break it all down for you. We've been saying this for weeks now. Kevin Durant got hurt about 3 weeks ago, and his return is crucial to Golden State's title chances. But then you look and see how Steph Curry elevated his game in Durant's absence. Same thing for Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. They look like the vintage Warriors. So we'd be silly to sit here and say that they have no problem if he doesn't play, because I do think they could win without him. But I want to see what they look like with him, because this is a pretty big stage to have to integrate a player, no matter how good or it's a role player or not. This is the biggest stage of them all. And to integrate a player who hurt his calf like that in the NBA Finals is going to be very tough for Steph Curry to have to do.
And
Steve Kerr, wow.
One of the major storylines here, Jason, and I think when we look at this finals, there's a few storylines that we're going to try and hit on. One of the big ones for me at the beginning of the series is that when Durant is not playing, who will Kawhi Leonard guard? And we saw last series that Nurse felt comfortable letting him guard Giannis. Now, part of that was that he felt that Kawhi Leonard is a smart enough player, and I think Kawhi Leonard earned that respect, that he's not someone who's going to pick up cheap fouls. One of the differences between Giannis and Leonard that I think probably informed that decision for both coaches is that Giannis fouls a lot and Kawhi does not. And as a result, you can afford to put him on the star player because you're not as afraid that he's going to pick up fouls and end up having to sit on the bench. I'm curious to see that while Durant is out, how many minutes will Nurse play Kawhi Leonard on Steph Curry? They have other guys who can guard Curry, but obviously Leonard is their best defender, one of the best defenders in the entire league, and I think the amount that he plays Curry will be really fascinating because it'll inform so much of what the Warriors are going to do. Their entire offensive scheme will change if Kawhi Leonard is on Curry, because so much of what they do is predicated on the pick and roll. But will they have to make that adjustment? Will something change there if Kawhi Leonard's in that? They're going to have some things that are going to be a bit different. And from the Toronto perspective on defense, it also affects the way that you scheme against those pick and rolls. Because with Kawhi Leonard, you have a little bit of a different situation in terms of switching. You might feel a little bit more comfortable having him switch onto Draymond Green than some of these other guys. So I am fascinated, Jason, to really see what Nurse does with Leonard, where he starts out on defense. What do you think?
I think we're going to see a lot of switching from both of these teams. We know Golden State are the kings of switching on both ends of the floor, but I think you're going to see Toronto adapt that philosophy a little bit. What I mean is I think you'll see Kawhi start out on a guy like Klay Thompson, because then if Iguodala starts and Durant's out, you can kind of flip-flop Kyle Lowry and Danny Green on Steph Curry and Iguodala respectively. So I think if you have Kawhi as the primary defender on Klay, not letting him get his shots in space and taking those open looks that he's so used to taking, then you have the combination of Green and Lowry to double team Curry. And if Iguodala and Draymond are not shooting the ball well, I think that's a tactic that might work in Toronto's favor. Because if Andrew Bogut starts, everyone's going to ignore him. You have Gasol who can get out and guard on the perimeter if he absolutely has to. So I think you're going to see him flanked on both Draymond and on Andrew Bogut for however many minutes he plays. But I think we're going to see a lot of switching from Toronto. I think Kawhi is going to stay mostly on Kawhi. Maybe he'll guard Steph. And then on the opposite end of the floor, I think you're going to see a lot of Steph Curry hiding on Kyle Lowry, because the worst thing that could happen for Golden State in this series, Ben, is if Kevin Durant doesn't play and then Steph gets in foul trouble, because then where's Golden State's offense coming from? So I think Toronto, we mentioned that word momentum, they are coming into this series with some momentum, even though Golden State's been on fire and they haven't lost a game since Kevin Durant went down. I think it's going to be pretty interesting.
I'm pretty confident that Nurse will do what he did in the last series. Start with Kawhi on, assuming Iguodala starts, on Iguodala to avoid cross matching. But I think, particularly if they lose game one, he's going to have him guard Curry a lot more. I will also be interested to see if they adapt what San Antonio used to do, Jason, which is put Kawhi on Draymond Green so that anytime they run the Curry Green pick and roll, they can switch Leonard onto Curry. And they used to like doing that a lot when Popovich still had Kawhi. I think Curry on the other end though is going to guard Danny Green. I think you're going to see a lot of Curry on Green
Well,
and a lot
Green
of
can't hit a
Thompson on
shot,
Lowry.
dude. It's
What'd you say?
amazing that he's still starting. Danny Green can't hit a shot right now.
Yeah, and I think that's why Curry will be on him most of the time. Um,
But the only
I'm
thing is
really
that that's what makes Golden State so dangerous because if they do what you said, then Klay Thompson's free to just make it rain on the Raptors. I mean, that's the thing. They don't have stoppers to stop both Curry and Thompson. And if Durant plays, forget about it because they took away a lot of the role players on the Bucks, and also the Bucks took themselves out of the game with the way Bledsoe and Middleton played. Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant are not Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton. So I think Nick Nurse is going to have his hands very full, to say the least, with these Golden State players.
well, and one of the things you have to think about too, Jason, that I think people sort of sleep on is if you put Kawhi Leonard on another player other than Iguodala, and then you start moving around your other defenders. So I'm not going to be shocked if they put Danny Green on Curry. If you start having a lot of these cross matches, Jason, it gets very dangerous against a team like Golden State. And the reason is that if you have a situation where those guys are coming down the floor, you need to account for those shooters at all times. Anytime you're cross match, it now means other guys have to pick them up in transition. They have to figure out who they're supposed to be guarding in transition, and it causes chaos. And I think that's the reason why a lot of coaches, especially defensive first coaches, and Nick Nurse, he has a kind of a traditional defensive philosophy. I think he's going to try to avoid cross matching against this team if he can. Personally, I think that if he does do that, it's going to cost him early because I think he needs Kawhi to play a lot on Curry for them to win this series because I think otherwise they're going to really struggle to score enough points to win. I think they're going to really need to take this series from the 110s into the 90s or the low 100s if they want to have any chance of beating the Warriors because I just don't think they have the firepower to keep up with the Warriors if this turns into a track meet, Jason.
I think I'm taking the over in every game. Toronto showed the ability to pull up points, but if Durant plays, we're not going to see the 70-68 Spurs Pistons
Oh,
2005.
sure.
No, we are going to see a lot of offensive firepower. But you mentioned if you put Kawhi Leonard on Steph Curry, then who the hell is Kyle Lowry going to guard?
Oh, he'll guard Thompson. He's comfortable. He
He
loves
can't
guarding the
stick
bigger
with
guys.
Clay. He can't stick with Clay. I really don't think he can.
He loves, though, the thing with Lowry, he loves guarding bigger guards. That's his favorite type of guy. He likes guarding sometimes the threes and even the fours and just daring them to post up. I mean, they had Tobias Harris on him in that Sixers series, and Lowry was licking his chops at the thought of him posting him up. He drew a couple charges on him in that series, and I mean, Tobias Harris couldn't really move him as much as you'd think. I mean, Lowry's got that big old butt behind him, and he does not give up space very, very easily down there. So I think he'll hang with Thompson. I do think, though, Jason, the concern there will be that's giving Thompson the airspace to shoot the ball. Lowry's not a real explosive jumper, shall we say, and he's shorter than Thompson. And Thompson loves to have smaller guys on him because it lets him get his shot off.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. So you have Lowry kind of on Clay, Steph and Kawhi. That leaves Danny Green and who? Kevin Durant / Andre Iguodala. See, this is what worries me is the matchups because I don't know in a half court setting who truly is going to match up with who. And I know you've said on past shows that if DeMarcus Cousins does play, and all signs are indicating that he might get on the court before Kevin Durant does, and you said a couple of times. If he plays, I think he's going to be a net negative.